Hello, good morning or good afternoon, depending upon where you're joining us from today. And welcome to today's webinar, Value Add Capabilities for Next Gen IBM i2 Performance. My name is Natalie Kramer, and I'm the Vice President of Brand and Channel Management here at VA Worldwide. I also have the distinct privilege of being your host and moderator for today's session. Before we get started, I'd like to quickly cover off a few housekeeping items to help us all get the most out of this session. First, I do need to let you know that this session is being recorded. The on-demand webinar will be available for playback from our YouTube channel following the session. Secondly, if I can ask you to keep your microphones muted during the presentations, that will hopefully help improve audio quality for all participants. And lastly, we have reserved time for question and answer at the end of today's session. If at any point in time during the presentation you do have a question, I don't want you to forget it. So go ahead and type your question into the chat feature, and we will be sure to address it at the end of the session. Let's go ahead and get started. So I know it goes without saying, but data is growing at an exponential rate. It's estimated that by the end of this year, by the end of 2020, every single human being on the planet will create 1.7 megabytes of data per second. And that adds up to an accumulated world total of 44 trillion gigabytes per year. That is a lot of information. And I don't know about you, but do you ever struggle to know where to begin with all that data at your fingertips, or how to turn your data into actionable intelligence? At VA, our mission is really simple. It's to empower our clients with best-of-breed solutions to gain insight from disparate data. And so today, we're really excited to have the opportunity to introduce you to one of our technology partners, Rosoka. So as channel manager, I'm responsible for the technology partnerships that we have at VA, the solutions that we take to market. And I'm really excited about Rosoka. Their solution, Rosoka Text Analytics, is truly a powerful, cost-effective, multilingual relationship and entity extraction tool that I truly believe will accelerate you into that next generation of IBM i2 performance. So today we're going to talk a little bit about Rosoka, give you more of an introduction. Then Dan is going to show you that efficiency in action. He's going to take you through a demo. And then lastly, we will have time at the end, as I said, for questions and answers. So just want to introduce the other presenters to you. Hopefully everybody on this call knows Dan Harris. He is a VA Worldwide Client Executive. We also have Dave Ashton on the call, who is our Australia-New Zealand Regional Manager. And so I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Dave to share with you a little bit more about Rosoka Text Analytics.
Yeah, thanks, Natalie. I think one of the biggest hurdles for analysts is accessing the data, and as Natalie's alluded to, the scale of the amount of information available to is exponentially growing, and it comes in different formats. And very often, if you've been familiar with the i2 toolset, then accessing and building charts to simplify complex investigations is become pretty much the default for most organizations globally. I mean, I think it's 142 countries around the world use i2. And very often it's structured data that is imported, ingested into the charts or into Ibase. But there's a growing need to also extract information from unstructured documents. Many people have reports, Word documents, PDFs, etc. And the information that's stored on those historically, when it's been included and manually added to a chart, means that that is often a transcription process. And when that happens, it can be very slow. It increases the human error factor as well. So when we started to see the information or the capabilities of Rosoka, we quickly identified this as a great tool. It's integrated into i2, and as Dan will now show you in a few moments, you'll see it becomes part of the workflow, improves that speed of being ingesting information from both structured and unstructured very quickly to end up with the charting tool to further that analysis and that investigation. So I hope you enjoy what you're going to see from Dan, a very articulate member of our team, who you all know hopefully personally anyway. And I think you'll share my enthusiasm as well as Dan and the team here at VA, where we look to see this exciting technology and where we can bring this to you to hopefully improve your role as well. So over to you, Dan, and best of luck.
Thanks. I don't need luck. Thanks, Dave. So as Dave said, Rosoka Text Analytics is inherently a tool for Analyst Notebook to extract entities out of unstructured data. So most of you would already be familiar with using import specifications to take structured data from CSV files, Excel spreadsheets, and using the columns, extracting entities and populating charts to create associations. Well, Rosoka Text Analytics allows you to do the exact same thing from unstructured data. So by unstructured data, we're talking about things like incident reports, documents off the web, any other internal documents, insurance claims, anything where there's large bodies of text. And Rosoka is actually an Analyst Notebook plugin. It's not a standalone product that happens to work with Analyst Notebook. It has been purposely designed to be a plugin for Analyst Notebook. So if I share my screen, cool, just give us a thumbs up when you can see the Analyst Notebook screen, which is something everyone should be familiar with. You'll see that the Rosoka Text Analytics, once it's installed, it appears up on your home, on the home ribbon. And all of the documents that you upload to Rosoka are stored in what's known as collections, which are basically just a container or an organized sort of set of documents, and you can assign any documents from any location on your local drive or on shared drives and put it into the location. So if you're working on investigations perhaps, and you've got some documents you've uploaded to your desktop, you've got some documents that are in a C drive or on a spare drive, plus other documents are in a G drive, a shared drive, you can locate all of those and put them within the collection in Rosoka. And it appears over here in a little in its own window. I've got one set up just to demonstrate, and this one has just a set of text documents. I'm just going to click on the first one and process it. Because it's a text document, it's relatively quick to process. And you can see what it's done here is just the simple sentence, Dan Harris works at VA Worldwide. It's identified that these two words, and Rosoka looks at words, they refer to them as tokens. So it doesn't look for specific words or phrases. What it does is it looks at each individual token, and then it understands through algorithms, it understands the lexicon and the phrasing of those tokens and matches them to its internal dictionaries and also user-defined dictionaries, if you like. I'll get to that in a moment, and identifies them as entities. So it would have identified Dan and also Harris as a first name and a surname, so it knows that as a person entity. The VA Worldwide, it's recognized that, as I hover over, you can see it's recognized that as an organization entity. Quite often what it will do for those, it will look for capitalized words. It will look for common words like worldwide, international, PTY, LTD, and look for the tokens around that and capture that as an organization. If I was to double click on the Dan Harris entity, it's broken it down here into how it's identified, how it's sort of behind the curtain, how it's actually worked. So it's identified a gender as male. The given name is Dan, the surname is Harris, and it's normalized it into just Dan Harris. Anytime it normalizes an entity, it will remove all the caps and it will just have all lowercase. There's also a link to the entity as well that it's identified, which is a person to organization. So within the structure of that sentence, it's identified that not only is there a Dan Harris entity and a VA Worldwide entity, but there's a person to organization link there as well. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and just process the entire collection. And these are just some simple sentences that I've thrown in as separate text documents. So Dave Ashton works at VA Worldwide. There's a few others in there as well. These are all in the collection of the Documents tab. If I move to the Entities tab, you can see here these are the entities that it's identified within the collection. There's one organization, there's two persons, and there's three places. So if I was to right-click on the Dan Harris and send that to the chart, okay, here's one I prepared earlier. I can now right-click on that, and if I had extracted a whole series of names, or let's say I selected every single person entity, thrown it on the chart, and I've got one result, I'm looking at it going, well, hang on, recall that one, but I don't know why that's in that collection or why it's mentioned in the document, I can right-click and go down to here, show in documents, and it will actually reverse engineer that and show me where in the documents Dan Harris appeared. So I've now got context as to where that entity has come from. And if you've ever connected your Ibase Intel repository to a chart, you'll know that I can also, or similar to that, I can right-click and I can expand. So it shows all the different entities that are within that collection that this Dan Harris entity is connected to. I'll just select all and expand. And it's brought across all the other entities that are linked to the Dan Harris entity. I can now select VA Worldwide and expand again, select all. And it's pulled out, okay, the VA Worldwide is based in Canberra. There's also Dave Ashton belongs to. I can right-click on Dave Ashton, find out a little bit more about him as well. And from the documents, there's an association chart that I've pulled just from those very basic text documents, okay? What I'd like to do now is show you a more practical use case. I go back to the root directory of all my collections. I'm going to create a new collection. And what I've done is I've got a file, I've created a folder on my desktop, which is a series of documents which I've taken off the web. And these are all pertaining to, there were some girls last month from Melbourne who flew to Brisbane via Sydney, and unknowingly they had the coronavirus. And so there was a series of different articles. I've got I've got a couple text documents. There's a Word document, there's a PDF document, but Rosoka Text Analytics, not only does it process about 230 different languages, but it also does a multitude of document types, including other things like Excel files. So if you've got big, large slabs of text within those Excel files, it'll do even emails. So not archived PST files, but if you've got an email, say in Outlook or Gmail, and you drag that and save it as a single file on your desktop, then Rosoka can extract the entities out of that as well. I'm going to show you an example of one. We're going to process one of these, and this is another text document from ABC News. And what it's doing now is it's going back to the dictionary and it's applying all the rules, all the rules in the dictionary in terms that are out of the box, but also anything that's been user defined, and it's putting it against this document. And that's the first document there. I'm actually going to process the entire collection as we just go through, this first document. So you'll see here is identified Queensland Police as a facility. Diana Lasore, Olivia Maranga. They've both been identified as person entities. The numbers after them, 21 and 19, these are measures. So they're sort of entities, but what it's done is it's recognized within the context of that sentence that 21 is a measure, being an age, and it's related to Diana Lasore. The second one is 19, which is a measure that's related to Olivia Maranga. And you can see here, I've clicked on 19. So you can see here that while it's come up as an entity type as measure, the subtype is age. So it's identified the ages of these two people as well. It's recognized COVID-19 as a disease entity, and coronavirus is another identity. There's a few other ones here. There's a she, Katrina Carroll. Today, anything that's a date reference or a specific reference to a time frame, it recognizes as an entity. And there's other things as well that it's identified, which what we refer to as anaphors. So you'll see here there's a reference to Miss Lasore's mother, Ada. So it's identified Ada as a name of a person, and then after that you'll see that there's a word she, and also her, and underneath you'll see person Ada. So these are anaphors. So it's taken that token or that word and it's analyzed it within the structure of that sentence, and it recognizes that pronoun actually refers to the person entity that was previously identified in that sentence. So if it was a sentence that said perhaps Dave Ashton lives in New Zealand, he drives a Datsun, then it would recognize. Sorry, Dave. It would recognize the Datsun as a vehicle, but also recognize that the he refers to the Dave Ashton that was mentioned in the previous sentence. So it would still link Dave Ashton as a person to that vehicle being the Datsun. But while I've been chatting, the rest of the collection has processed now. So rather than going through all the individual documents, I can select my entities tab, and these are all the entities that have actually been identified. So there's some addresses, there's communication device, conveyance. Conveyance in this instance are the flights that were mentioned in the in some of the articles. There's a crime, which was the fraud, and there's disease, as I mentioned, and there's about 20 people that it's extracted out of those documents as well. If I was to focus on just the COVID-19, which is a disease entity, and send that to the chart, I can then right click and expand. And rather than select all, I might just choose, okay, I want to know what person entities from those documents are associated with COVID-19. And it's going to extract these. So in this instance, I was expecting to see Diana Lasore, I was expecting to see Olivia Maranga, and Haja Timbo was a third female that was associated with the first two on their trip. I already saw from the document that we were going through before that Ada is actually the mother of one of the girls. But I've also got a Stephen Miles here. And again, I wasn't necessarily expecting to see him in this association chart. So again, I can right click, and by reverse engineering, as I show in the documents, I can find out exactly who Stephen Miles is and why he's mentioned in this chart. And I can see from this document here that Stephen Miles is the health minister, which is why it's actually extracted him as recognized him as a person entity. And you'll see that he's been mentioned in two different documents. And so there's both of those documents in the list. So in terms of extracting entities from these documents, it does take a little bit of curating. Rosoka out of the box you'll be incredibly surprised at how accurate it is, but there will be some terminology. There might be some slang terms in some of these articles, particularly if you're using witness statements or incident reports from officers or investigators in the field. There may be some slang in there. So what Rosoka Analytics, the product I'm using now, has within it is everything is stored in an SQL database on your local drive, and you have the ability to add and allow it to learn more dictionary terms as you go. So if I was to find the document, and I'm just going to do this on the fly, I'm just going to try and find something that perhaps wasn't picked up, and that one actually looks pretty good. Let me try and find another one. Elise, otherwise I'll just make something up. I don't really want to do. Okay, well, here's Brisbane Magistrates Court. So what it's done is it's identified Brisbane as a place, but if we wanted to do Brisbane Magistrates Court as its own place, I can right click. I can select select the Brisbane. Okay, I'm going to do my own one. I'm going to tag an entity, and I'm going to select Brisbane Magistrates Court and tag that. So you can see here it's come up as Brisbane Magistrates Court, and it's come up as a place. I'm going to change that to not really an organization. We'll go with organization. I'm just going to remove the latitude and longitude. So it actually brought up the latitude and longitude of Brisbane. So if you're using any GIS applications with your Analyst notebook, you'll be able to not only extract the entity, the place or location entities out of your documents, but then actually map that back to an Esri or whatever other GIS you're using. I can also select the learn down here. So not only am I identifying a new entity, but I'm selecting it learn, so that anytime it sees Brisbane Magistrates Court in this collection or any other future collections, it's going to assign that as an organization. So do you want Rosoka to learn this entity? And I'm going to select learn. And what it's doing is it's actually writing that entity back to the user-defined dictionary. So this is, as I mentioned, this is the standalone workstation. So for anyone who has just a single Analyst notebook or two Analyst notebook licenses, then one or two Rosoka licenses is going to see you through. For anyone who uses larger amounts of Analyst notebook, then what you would probably want to use is the work group version of Analyst of Rosoka Studio, which is basically a central SQL database that everyone benefits from by creating. You can create your own user dictionaries. Like I said, if you're in an industry, let's say it's law enforcement, and you've got a whole slew of slang terms for drugs or weapons and those sort of phrases that come up in witness statements or incident reports or what have you, you can assign those to the dictionary so it recognizes that car seat covers or fur seals are the latest slang term on the street for drugs. You'll see here now that it's reprocessed that the Brisbane up here that I'm highlighting is still a place, but the Brisbane Magistrates Court is now recognised as an organisation entity. So it does take a little bit of curating initially, but you'll find very quickly Rosoka Studio will start to learn, and it basically expedites the role of someone who has multiple multiple documents, and it's their job with a highlighter to go, okay, this person is the same as this person is the same as the person mentioned in this document, and this person is in this witness statement. It just takes all those documents and processes them and throws them on a chart as entities for you. That, in a nutshell, is the power of Rosoka. I can highlight all of these and just click expand. And what I'm essentially going to do is bring across all of the entities and links that are associated with these people. And that is a chart of entities based on all the unstructured data they had in that collection. And then once it's on the chart, you can do the normal things you can with Analyst Notebook. You could, if you had conditional formatting, you could apply that to the chart. You could identify 2 points on the chart and find the shortest path. You could do all the normal analytical functions you normally perform in Analyst Notebook on your unstructured data.
Great. Thank you, Dan. So I know that was a lot of information and a really fast demo. So I'm hoping there's some questions. I don't see any in the chat just yet, but if you do have questions, feel free to unmute your microphone. We're happy to address any questions you have about Rosoka or things that Dan shared in the demo here. Any questions?
Just waiting on any questions, Dave here. I think, Dan, I'm not sure if you mentioned it, but out of the box, it deals with, I think, 200 languages. Yeah,
230 plus is what they're saying. Yep. But that's increasing every day as well. The language boffins at Rosoka are working on including a lot more. I don't have any in this example only because of the context of the article, but if there were some documents in here that were in Chinese or Russian or what have you, it identifies them as well. And because it looks at the linguistics around the tokens, it's not getting bogged down in the phrases. It really just does look for each individual word and identifies places, names, objects, locations, what have you. And that's how it sort of gets around any sort of dialect or sort of phrasing and languages like that. It really just breaks it down into the tokens.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And I know when I've done a demo using a Russian Wikipedia page, and it does a translation on the fly, so in English. So, for example, you were presented with a foreign language document that you wanted to have a quick view. So it was something that was found at a scene, for example, in a law enforcement role. You could load that document up from, say, a computer extraction, load it up, and then you could hover the mouse over the words in the foreign language, and it would automatically highlight and translate that into English. So as a quick translation tool to see the value of that document in a real-time situation, it's quite a useful tool as well.
Yeah, certainly. In lieu of any questions, and I've got a couple more minutes up my sleeve, I might just quickly show something that was on the back of one of the questions we had from our last demonstration, which was about its integration with Ibase. So as I mentioned, the Rosoka Text Analytics is a designated plugin for Analyst Notebook. It doesn't plug into Ibase, but it is certainly a way to, you can certainly extract information from these unstructured data, put it in the chart, and then put it into your Ibase repository. Now, you wouldn't want to just pick up everything from the documents and just slam it straight into your Ibase repository, because you're going to come up the works a little bit with things that you don't necessarily want. But by using RTA, you can take the entities from the unstructured data, put it in a chart, and then use that chart to conduct analysis, sort out the wheat from the chaff, and then if there's anything that's really specific in there that you want to keep, you can then either process it into Ibase by using just the chart extraction, or you can find common entities and merge them. So an example would be, if I just quickly create a new chart, I'm going to go back to my demo, and I'm going to add another, I'm going to add another file to that, which is this one here. So this is one last, and again, it's just a simple text document about a gentleman named Tyson Montgomery who lives in Ballarat, and it's identified Ballarat as a place, although it's actually California, US. That's unusual. All right. I was thinking more of the Sovereign Hill kind of Ballarat, but that's fine. We will take the person of Tyson Montgomery and send him to our chart. And I'm going to connect to my Ibase because I've been working on an investigation, let's say on in Ibase, and I happen to know that there's a Tyson Montgomery in there as well. Okay, so now I'm connected to, my chart is now connected to Ibase as well. So I can right click and access my casino database, which is for Ibase, and I can try and find my Tyson Montgomery in there. So he's looking for person, surname. I'm going to type Mont, and there's my Tyson Montgomery, and I'm going to pop him on the chart as well. So this is my Tyson Montgomery. Because my chart is linked to Ibase, I can double click on it, and what I'm going to get is the data sheet from Ibase if I want to make any adjustments to that. But I don't. He's a male. I've got his date of birth, but then also I've got a Tyson Montgomery here, which I've extracted out of my documents. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the Tyson Montgomery from my Ibase as my primary. I'm going to hold down Control and select Tyson Montgomery from the Rosoka documents. And from my Analyze toolbar, I'm just going to merge those entities together. So now you'll see that I've got the Tyson Montgomery together. If I double click on that Tyson Montgomery, I'm still going to get the data sheet because it's still connected to Ibase. But if I right click and go down to edit item properties, you'll see two things. First of all, the label is both because it's brought the label across from the Rosoka constructed entity into this one. So I'm going to delete that one and just keep Tyson Montgomery because our in-house style might be capitalized Christian first name and then all caps surname. But the identity, the unique identifier has changed to the Rosoka code that is applied to the entity that's constructed by Rosoka. Do you want to apply the change? Yes. So what this means is I can right click and from my casino Ibase, I can expand and pull out everything I know about Tyson Montgomery from my database. So within my Ibase database, my Intel repository, I had an address, I had a phone number, and I had an associate. But I can also right click on Tyson Montgomery, and from the Rosoka, I can expand that as well. I think I'll just expand all. Okay, and there I'm going to get the Ballarat connection, which was from. So I'm going to get the Ballarat connection, which was from my Rosoka documents. That's come up from a previous one. So that's the way that I can utilize both extracting documents from unstructured data and putting it into Analyst Notebook, but also leverage the information that I have in Ibase as well and combine the two. So if I wanted to, I could then upload this entity, this link, but him residing in Ballarat, California, into my Ibase as well. So you can pick and choose what entities as a result of Rosoka Text Analytics you then take and put into your Intel repository. So it works with both. It's a fantastic process to sort of curate, to take as much as you can out of all those unstructured documents and then curate and pick and choose what you save as actual intel for your team.
That's great, Dan. Thank you so much. And congratulations for a successful demo live on the fly. So that doesn't always happen. So we'll stop and celebrate that moment.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like there are any questions in the chat at this moment. So I'm going to go ahead and close us out here. Just want to, again, say thank you so much for joining us this morning. If it was, if you're from Western Australia, Southern Australia, I just really appreciate you taking the time to join our webinar first thing this morning. Hope you had a chance to get a cup of coffee. If not, we kept it hopefully short and concise so you can go get a cup of coffee now. But again, we really appreciate your time. there's a lot to Rosoka, and I know Dan covered a lot of information. So if there's any questions, feel free to reach out to Dan directly. Again, we have recorded this webinar, so we will make sure that that playback link is available. You can go back and refer to that, or you can always email us at sales@vaworldwide.com. We also have some additional information about Rosoka on our YouTube channel currently, so you can go and see videos directly from Rosoka shared there under our partner channel. So again, we really just want to say thank you for joining us this morning, giving us some of your time. We hope you learned something that was helpful and insightful to you. I look forward to continuing the conversation with you. But Dan, Dave, anything from you to close this out?
No, I just want to say thanks to everyone for your attendance, and obviously, given the circumstances, if it wasn't for the current circumstances, I would have been able to visit you all in SA and WA. But hopefully, I'll catch up with you soon.
Yeah, same for me. Well done, Dan, and yeah, we look forward to engaging. We've got a lot of interest over in New Zealand as well, so I've got a meeting in 2 hours on the same subject. So interesting times.
All right. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us. And on behalf of all of us at VA Worldwide, stay safe, stay healthy, and be well.